Okay, so here we are sewing the center seam. Double check you're on the straight stitch. Sometimes people turn it to zigzag before you're on the machine, so you want to double check you're on the straight stitch, and the stitch length is 3. Now you may be asking how we sew around this curve. It's not as hard as you would think. You get the edge lined up on the 5/8. We always sew on the 5/8 seam, and you want to make sure that your pins are on top. So pins are on top, edges on the 5/8. And I'm just going to start to sew. 5 stitches forward, reverse to the beginning, and then like this inner leg seam, just take out those pins as you work. Now this first part of the U of the center seam is nice and straight, so this just goes the same way that you've been doing your seams. Staying on the 5/8. When it starts to curve, I find that it's helpful to kind of stretch out and move the fabric so it's just a little bit straighter. So even though it's a curve like this, you don't have to keep your project like this. Stretch it out and make it just a little bit straighter so that we can stay on the 5/8 the whole way around. This is one of the trickiest part because we're going around a curve trying to keep it nice and even. So we'll just take out the pins as we go. Stay on the 5/8. Now here we are at the center seam. Remember, this is pretty thick because it has the seam, the pants, the back layer, and the other seam. So to get over here, I'm going to go ahead and get the edge of the seam under my presser foot, and then I'm going to take this pin out of the way. I'm just going to go nice and slow and kind of give it a little tug from the back to make sure that I get over that part. Then you just keep working your way around the curve, staying on the 5/8, taking pins out as you go so you don't break your needle or jam your machine. Okay, now we're back to the straightaway. Always remember, in these videos, I'm sewing at Miss Moser's pace. You should be sewing at your pace, which is probably a bit slower, and that's totally fine. There's our last pin. We get up to the top, all the way to the top, back stitch about a 1/2 inch, and then the first seam is done. Okay, so you can see here, it's a nice U, and same as your inner leg seams. What we have to do is go ahead, we're going to sew this seam one more time. Literally right on top of what you just sewed with the straight stitch. After the seam is sewed 2 times, we sew it 2 times so you don't split your pants. Nobody wants a hole in the pants, especially in the center seam. So once you have sewed this twice, bring it to Miss Moser or Mrs. Caddy. We will lightly trim the edges just to make sure they're totally even and the notches are off. And then you zigzag. Zigzagging on a curve is definitely a little trickier than the straight, but totally doable. We go ahead, turn to that big zigzag, the solid zigzag, not the dotty one. Get lined up so you can see the edge of your fabric in the edge of the presser foot. And then we just start with our 5 forward, 5 back, and keep that fabric lined up the whole way. Once we're done this zigzag and we've done the straight stitch 2 times, then we're ready to move on to step 4, which is the outer leg seams. So here we are on the curve. You can see it's a little bit trickier. You do have to make sure that you're kind of keeping up with your machine. If you see here, this got a little bit folded up. I'm actually going to put the needle down and lift the presser foot. My foot's totally off the foot pedal. And I'm just going to push this little part of the fabric down so I know my pants are going to be extra neat. Now my fingers are the way, keep sewing. Once this zigzag is finished, then you're ready to move on. So here we are at the end, back stitch. Okay, you can see this finished center seam. and it's time for step 4.